morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, as always, we will be going through every single game of the Week 8 slate for this fantasy football recap. Talking injuries, talking snap counts, talking routes run, talking everything that you need to know for the second half of your fantasy seasons. All right, we do this every single Monday, so if you are new here, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification button so you know when we go live. We're doing it at noon Eastern time today. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 10 a.m. It really just depends on how I slept the evening before. But welcome in, everybody. We will start with Thursday Night Football's game where the Los Angeles Chargers beat the shit out of the Minnesota Vikings. And we'll say, I'm curious to know how this game would have went if that pick at the beginning of the game counted and Minnesota had the touchdown to start, but it didn't, and thus that would be an alternative universe, and it didn't matter because the Vikings could not get anything going on the offensive side of the ball. Two biggest takeaways for the Vikings are that Carson Wentz will not be their quarterback going forward. Minnesota plays next week against the Detroit Lions in Detroit, and J.J. McCarthy will be back under center for that one. So I don't know that I love that for the pass catchers. I don't think it's like a huge hit by any stretch. I do think Wentz probably gives them more ceiling games right now for the pass catchers where he'll randomly, throw for 270, 300 or whatever, and it's great for Jefferson and Addison. But obviously the consistency of the passing game is terrible with Wentz under center. So hopefully some good things for J.J. McCarthy. We also had the big return of Aaron Jones in this one, and he actually out-carried Jordan Mason 5-4. I didn't expect to see as much Aaron Jones as I did in this one as he was coming back from the hamstring strain, but he's clearly going to be a very, very big part of the offense going forward, as we could see if we head over to the Minnesota Vikings on fantasylife.com. The snap counts were as follows: 53% in favor of Aaron Jones, 34% for Jordan Mason, and 13% for Xavier Scott. He ran the most routes. He had the most carries, saw the most targets, split the short down and distance, got most of the long down and distance, plus the 2 and 4 minute drills. So if you had to ask me based on this game, which back I'd rather have going forward, I think we could just rewind it to around draft day when Aaron Jones was, a 7th, 8th round pick and Jordan Mason was a 9th, 10th round pick, right? Like I think that's probably the split that we're going to be looking at going forward. I do expect both backs to be involved, but like at the beginning of the season, Aaron Jones will probably be the pass catcher. He'll make some big plays. I think Mason will likely be on the goal line when they are down there, but it makes the backfield just a completely messy situation for the time being. On the flip side, the backfield is not messy here until Omarion Hampton comes back because Kamani Vidal had another huge game, 23 for 117 on the ground and a touchdown, catches a pass for 10 yards. But yeah, until Omarion Hampton comes back, Kamani Vidal is very well trusted in this Chargers backfield, and he will be a rock-solid RB2 because they love him, they trust him, they keep giving him the ball. So don't need to overthink that one. Herbert, another huge game, 227 and 3 through the air, 62 on the ground. The big takeaway here is just the complete flipping here of Oronde Gadsden's role with Quentin Johnston. Gadsden's obviously a tight end, but he has become a pure pass-catching weapon here, looking so good doing it. Turned his 5 targets into 5 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Probably could have been worse if they were throwing the ball at all in the second half. But yeah, he was like our top, waiver wire pickup last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever, because he's a legitimate pass catcher in an offense that's throwing the ball a ton. Herbert's clicking on all cylinders right now. He's awesome, and it's clearly come at the expense of Quentin Johnston. I don't know if he's just recovering from that hamstring strain or he is just morphing back into Quentin Johnston. I think Johnston's a much better player than he was in the first couple of years, obviously, and I think he'll have better days ahead. But right now, I guess, just based on what we've seen the last couple of weeks, I think it would be wise to put him as number, 3 in the wide receiver pecking order, number 4 in the pass catching pecking order. Gadsden, to me, feels like an every week starter at this point going forward in your tight end slot. When we look at the routes run at the tight end position for the Chargers, he's a near every down player. 91% of the routes, 91. That's higher than Ladd, higher than Keenan, higher than QJ. He's running more routes than the receivers at this point. Maybe he is the number one weapon there. Lads look great, but Gadsden looks super fucking legit. So, pass catching tight end out of Syracuse. People loved him coming out of the draft because of the pass catching ability he had as a playmaker. And it's coming to fruition here. So let's move on to game number 2. Just like I can't say I'm surprised as a Falcons fan, to be honest with you. Yeah, Dolphins, Falcons. Dolphins beat the shit out of us, despite it seeming like the Dolphins were going to be the worst team in the NFL. 34-10. From the Miami side, listen, I can't say I'm overly surprised. I think like the demise of Tua and the fact that people thought he was going to get benched and McDaniel was going to get fired, I always thought that was a little bit overhyped. Like, obviously, they were coming off the worst game ever, but it was against Cleveland, and it was in just terrible weather. Like, we know Tua just simply cannot operate when it's in that weather, when it's in that type of environment. You go to a dome in Atlanta, it's much more Miami speed. So we saw Tua have a huge game. Devon Achane, 23 touches in this one. He got home. Jalen Waddle bounced back. I can't believe how many Jalen Waddle sit-start questions I had. I had like Jalen Waddle or some fucking schlub at receiver, like based off the Cleveland game, which is crazy to me. Waddle just had a bad game, and I think in normal environments, he's, a high-end wide receiver too, and more likely like a top 10 fantasy wide receiver going forward. On the flip side, they just couldn't get anything going for Atlanta. I mean, they were without Michael Penix. We were without Drake London because of the hip injury. From what I'm hearing, we don't actually have like a real report on Drake London. Like, all we know is that there was a hip injury on Friday's practice, which made him limited, which means he didn't finish the practice. Like, he started the practice, got hurt, and then didn't finish, and then was ruled out. If it's like a basic hip pointer injury, he should be back next week. But again, we don't have like a clear injury report on what happened. So I don't know. Michael Penix, from what I'm hearing, I think there's a good chance that he is back. It's not an overly serious injury. He was limited throughout the entire week, just couldn't get a full practice in. So I think there's a 51-49 chance that we do see Michael Penix back on the field. Kirk Cousins didn't really do himself any favor. I'm sorry to everyone who I told to start Darnell Mooney. Just a bad read, I guess. It was Miami's terrible secondary. Darnell Mooney had a good game last week. Him and Kirk had great chemistry last year. That was when Darnell almost had a 1,000-yard season, and Kirk was the quarterback for the majority of it. So, just a shitty game for the Falcons, man. They just sold out the Miami Dolphins defense did to stop Bijan, because it was like they don't have any pass catchers that can separate with Drake London out, and that worked to perfection. We also had a lot of our key defenders out in this one too. So again, not a huge surprise that we flopped. We are just the most inconsistent team in the NFL. It is disgusting. Jets and the Bengals. Jets get their first win of the season. I can't believe they pulled this fucking win out, but I mean, nothing major to take away. Justin Fields you're playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are the worst team in the NFL, and they lost Trey Hendrickson in this one, who is likely going to be sidelined for some time, re-injuring the hip that kept him out the week prior. So now it's probably going to be a more elongated absence for him. Breece Hall had a really good game against the worst defense in the NFL. So again, there's nothing really to take away from here. There's some pass catchers that got home on the back of literally Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, like no one playing here. So the Jets have their bye in week 9, likely going to get Garrett Wilson back after that in week 10. I continue to say, just hold on to Isaiah Davis. I mean, if you flexed him this week, he obviously actually had a good game for you. 5 catches, ended up with over 100 total yards from scrimmage because of that breakaway 50-yard play. But again, listen, the Jets are 1-7. Trade deadline is November 9th, I believe, November 6th or something like that, around that time, week 10-ish. So if they move Breece Hall, Isaiah Davis is going to be a near every down player. So I would just keep him stashed on your roster if I could. On the flip side, Flacco left the game for a minute with what appeared to be an AC sprain, probably got an injection. From what I'm hearing, it's not overly concerning. They play Chicago next week, who has an absolutely decimated secondary. He could take another shot, even though it is in a throwing shoulder, and should be able to play through it. The backfield, Chase Brown has seen some life injected back into him with Flacco back under center here. So that's big for the entire offense, obviously. Jamar Chase, 19 more I didn't even realize he had 19 targets in this one. Holy shit. 19 targets. The only problem, you can't complain at all about Jamar Chase. In my biggest league, full PPR, I have Jamar Chase. So he's almost doing nothing but doing everything for you. For him to have a bad game and get you 21 points is miraculous. They're not targeting him at all downfield, and he does continue to bobble balls and just drop passes for some reason. I guess, when you have 20 targets a game, you're going to fuck up a few of them. I do wish we saw a few more downfield shots to Jamar Chase, but Jamar, T. Higgins, Chase Brown are all viable again, thanks to Joe Flacco. They did play the New York Jets, so we don't want to get over our skis, but Chicago is another team that you could start a lot of players against. They get a bye, then they're against Pittsburgh, New England, Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami. So a lot of easy teams that they're playing against on the schedule going forward. Chase Brown, to me right now, like he's not getting enough work that I feel him being like a top 15 guy by any stretch if they're not playing a great matchup. He gets into the end zone twice in this one, over 100 yards from scrimmage. Tougher matchups, I do think he'll be more of like a flex option again. But of course, like if you started Chase Brown the last couple of weeks, you feel a lot better about him. Samaje Perine is for show. He's playing more. Listen, I don't want to take that away from him, and he looked good yesterday. But again, 17 times in a row, they're playing the Jets. Terrible fucking defense. 43% of the snaps. I mean, that's the one thing. If you are watching this game, you could see clearly that Samaje Perine has carved out a real role in this offense. He's not going to be startable, though, unless Chase Brown gets hurt. Patriots, Browns. From the Brown side, a couple injuries to watch out for. Quinshot Judkins looks like it's probably an AC sprain, and they do have their bye in week 9. So from what I'm hearing, the rumblings, we should not be overly concerned about it. There's a very good chance that he could play after the bye in week 10. So good news there. If he does miss, it does look like Dylan Sampson will largely be the guy in that backfield, kind of similar to the beginning of the season when he was catching 1,000 passes, not really running very successfully, but very, very usable in PPR. If that does happen, Harold Fannin, very good game. Njoku gets in. National Tight End Day. Expect nothing less. Jerry Jeudy, another miserable game. I think there's a chance that we see Shedeur Sanders under center soon. He was not active in this game. He was sidelined with an injury, and Bailey Zappi was the backup. But I do think if Gabriel keeps playing like this and just not giving his team a chance to compete and win, we might see Shedeur Sanders soon. So if you're in a Superflex league, you got some room, 14th team, whatever, and he's available, I might think about dropping a couple dollars fab on him and just kind of seeing what happens with that situation. On the flip side, Drake May just continues to play fucking lights out. 282, 3 touchdowns, 50 more on the ground, in the MVP conversation for show. In terms of the pass catchers, I mean, it's almost like Josh Allen, where you just like can't really, you can like rely on all of them, but you can't really rely on any of them on a week-to-week basis. Like this week was the Matt Collins week and the Kayshon Boutte week. Stephon Diggs finally gets into the end zone, but only has 14 yards. So the way I'm looking at him, I think Diggs is like a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Boutte is more of like a low-end wide receiver 3 flex play. Both of them very much playable, but hard to know what to expect on a weekly basis. Backfield's a little interesting. Trayvon Henderson got a lot of run early, was breaking off a lot of big plays, 10 for 75 on the ground. Did lose a fumble towards the end of the game, though. And I don't know. This coaching staff, hard to understand what they care about, what they don't care about. For Ramondre and Antonio Gibson, they don't care about fumbles. For Trayvon Henderson, because he's a rookie, maybe they do. But it's clear that the explosiveness for Trayvon Henderson was there, while Ramondre Stevenson doesn't really have it. Snap counts, though, I mean, it's more just par for the course here. They are splitting the snaps as they were for most of the season here. Even in a good game for Trayvon Henderson, he just happened to get a lot of carries on the snaps that he was playing, but it was still 72% to Ramondre, 22% to Trayvon Henderson. So until we see a more clear role for Trayvon Henderson here, I'm not about to chase a 9-carry sample size right now and throw him into my lineup. Eagles versus the Giants. We'll start on the Giants side of things because it was a decimating day for them as they lose the lifeblood, the heart, and the soul of their team. Cam Scatabo suffers a fractured ankle. It's the same injury that Aiden Hutchinson suffered last year. It's the same injury that Alex Smith suffered, the really severe injury a few years back. Chris Godwin suffered this. Basically, what happens with an injury like this, from what I understand, is the reason something like that can happen to an Alex Smith is if the bone gets exposed through the skin, it can get infected, which leads to a really, really bad injury, obviously, and that's what happened with Alex Smith. However, if it doesn't, and it's just a typical ankle fracture, you can recover in real time. As we could see, Aiden Hutchinson was like week 4, 5, 6, whatever last year, and he's back at full strength right now. So there's very much a timeline in which Cam Scatabo is fine and ready to roll for next year. He'll obviously be out for the remainder of the season, which opens up a ton of opportunity for Tyrone Tracy. And I imagine that's what this backfield is going to be going forward. So Tracy, to me, is going to be, I think on a week-to-week basis, probably going to be ranked inside that like RB 18 to 24 range, depending on the matchup, but I expect him to be a 65 to 70% snap guy. Devin Singletary taking some short yardage and just some like breather back carries. But we have all of last year's sample size where Tracy took over as the starter. Once Devin Singletary got hurt a little bit, he came back, he kind of lost his job. But on Sunday, we saw Tracy 64% of the snaps, Singletary only 16%. And it was mostly Tracy's job to lose at that point. If we look back at last year, it was much of the same. It was Tracy 67% for the season. It was Singletary 28% of the season from week 8 onward. And I think that's just what we're going to get. So I think Tracy's now like a really solid RB2. He's easily the number one waiver wire pickup on the week if he's available. I also think Darius Slayton, first game back from the hamstring pull, another very good waiver wire target for you. Only 2 for 26 on the box score in this one, but he did lead the team in targets with 5 of them. He also had a 67-yard touchdown called back on a questionable offensive pass interference penalty, but that's the type of upside he brings any given day. The Giants, 24 pass attempts, 21 rushes. That's 45 total plays. They get sacked 5 times. So 45 to 50 total plays for offense is an extremely low number that you should not expect going forward. So with the state of the Giants, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I think Darius Slayton's actually a really sneaky good pickup if someone dropped him following the hamstring strain a couple weeks ago. On the flip side, Hurts, 4 more touchdowns through the air. Devontae Smith, 6 for 84. Dallas Goedert, 2 more touchdowns. They were without A.J. Brown, of course, the hamstring strain. They have their bye next week, week 9. So from everything I'm hearing, A.J. Brown should be back for that game against Green Bay. They didn't need him for this game, obviously. Saquon. Now, Saquon, 14 for 150, breaks away that 65-yard touchdown very early in the game, and you're like, okay, Saquon's back. Ended up getting another one through the air, so a massive fantasy day for Saquon. Now, he does leave with what looked like a hamstring strain originally, but then it was reported that it was a groin strain. He also came out after the game showing very little concern for it, saying that it's not serious, saying that he'll be fine after the bye, saying as far as, if this was a competitive game or a very serious game or whatever, that he would have probably tried to return. But everything that I'm hearing from the different doctors that I follow and whatnot is this is not something to be overly concerned about. And there's a very, very a good chance that he doesn't miss any time. So the Tank Bigsby hype was fun for a second. This was like his first good game. He looked awesome, 9 for 104 on the ground. What we do know now is he's the clear handcuff to Saquon. If Saquon misses a game following the bye, which again, most people are not expecting that, I think Tank could be a streaming option. Obviously, it's a very good run offense as a whole. He doesn't really have that breakaway ability like Saquon does, and they do play, I believe, at the Packers? Yeah, they're at Green Bay, which is not an easy matchup, and this is not going to be a long-term injury for Saquon, even if he splits snaps in the week back from the bye or he does end up missing a game. Tank's not someone I would go crazy on rostering, but if you're a Saquon owner and you want to be safe and grab Tank and just hold on to the handcuff for the playoffs, I don't really have a problem with that. But again, just not overly serious for Mr. Saquon. Bills Panthers, not much to take away here from the Bills side of things. Josh Allen doesn't need to do much because James Cook just took over this game. 19 for 216 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Khalil Shakir does break off a big play, 54 yards for a touchdown, so he gets home 6 for 88. Otherwise, Keon Coleman continues to be really disappointing. Bad game for Dalton Kincaid, but again, when Josh Allen competes 12 passes and James Cook just dominates, you're just not going to get much from the Buffalo side. On the flip side, Andy Dalton played horrendously, took 7 sacks, interception, lost 2 fumbles. Like, you just couldn't have played a worse game. That being said, like everyone predicted, didn't think it would go this way, but Ted McMillan, 10 targets, 7 catches, 99 yards, has a very strong fantasy day. No one else behind him does. The backfield, I mean, here's the problem. It's like every week, Rico Dowdle just continues to average 6, 7, 8 yards per carry, and every week the Panthers coaching staff just doesn't care. It's very clear that Rico's a much better fit. He's a much better runner right now than Chuba Hubbard, but they're still just completely splitting series. There's no, down or distance. There's no third down, short down and distance, goal line opportunities. It is just Rico, Chuba. There was a series where I think Rico had a really nice play, and then Andy Dalton turned the ball over the next play, and then the next series was just Chuba. They didn't even let him ride it back. So I would love to say, yeah, I like Rico more, but we don't know who's going to be in when they get to the goal line, and it happened to be Chuba at the end of the game in this one. So it's just right now they're both like kind of shitty RB3 flex streamers that I don't feel confident in putting into my lineup. They play at Green Bay next week. They do get New Orleans after that, but yeah, I mean, like I'm not gonna feel great about having Rico or Chuba in my lineup at Green Bay next week, unfortunately. So we need a fucking injury to one of them for the other one to open up. Ravens and the Bears. The Ravens get it done. And if I heard correctly on a podcast this morning, the Ravens at 2-5 are now the favorites to win the AFC North. Honestly, not surprising at all. The Steelers finally have a tough slate of games on their schedule, and we saw last night they lost to the Packers, and they'll probably continue to lose, and the rest of the teams in that division are terrible, especially after the Bengals lost to the Jets. Snoop Hundley fills in, gets it done, mainly thanks to Derrick Henry, 21, 71, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Don't really need to talk about the rest of this game. Lamar Jackson will be back for Thursday Night Football. Lamar Jackson plays at Miami Thursday Night Football. He'll be back. He'll be ready to go. This offense will be back at full strength, and they will dominate the Miami Dolphins. Chicago Bears side of things. Not a great game for Caleb Williams. 285 and an interception. Had some crazy good plays. Had some crazy dumb plays. Rome Odunze does get home 7 for 114, so good to see a bounce back there. 4 for 73 to DJ Moore. Most of it on the back of an insanely bad decision by Caleb Williams to throw the ball to him, but a crazy one-handed catch by DJ Moore. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know why I'm talking about it. Nothing to take away here. Does not make me trust DJ Moore at all. You don't really want to trust anybody in this passing game except for Rome Odunze. Kind of a disappointing day for Colson Loveland, despite the game script and despite Cole Kmet being out for this one. Backfield, very much a split again between DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. Swift does perform better, 11 for 45, gets the touchdown on the ground. Monangai 7 for 24. Swift also bests him in the receiving game, catching 2 for 26. He continues to make big play week after week after week after week, but it's also very clear that they want to split the snaps in this fucking backfield, man. And I got to say, as a Swift owner, I'm enjoying the fantasy points he's putting up, but it makes me queasy watching this backfield rotation. And if you can sell DeAndre Swift high, I would do it in a second. They're past their bye week, which is like a good thing for them, obviously. However, if you've got Swift and you can move him for like a high-end wide receiver or something, I would try to package something and get Swift off your lineup. Not because I don't think he's going to have good days ahead, or I don't think Kyle Monangai is going to jump Swift. Like, Swift clearly looks like the better player, but Ben Johnson's offense just wants to run through multiple backs, unfortunately. And again, their games over the next couple of weeks are nice matchups. Like, maybe you want to wait. They get Cincinnati next week, the Giants after that. So those are 2 matchups you could absolutely, perform really well against. But starting in week right after that, they're at Minnesota, Pittsburgh, at Philly, at Green Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay, at San Francisco. So mostly really tough matchups leading into the playoffs, which is another reason to, not only try to move off Swift because of the backfield situation here, but because of the schedule down the stretch. So just my 2 to 7 cents. I actually need to go get water because my throat hurts a little bit. All right. So forgive me. And while I'm going to get water, do me a favor and just hit the thumbs up button. Thank you. Love you. Yeah. How we down? All right, moving over to the Niners and the Texans. An unraveling of the 49ers. The injuries are finally starting to catch up to them. They are down to some really, really bad players on defense. More injuries they sustained in this game. 2 defensive linemen. I think the guy that was backing up Fred Warner is now hurt as well. So they are really, really down to the nuts and bolts here. But they should get a lot of reinforcements back next week against the Giants. I do believe Brock Purdy will be back. I think there's a good chance Ricky Pearsall is back. Actually, I don't want to guarantee that at all because he hasn't been practicing. But I also think there's a chance that they opened up Brandon Ayuk's 21-day practice window. So I think reinforcements are coming. Just a really bad day from their offense overall. None of the pass catchers really got home. George Kittle did score a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, 4 for 45. dropped a fucking beautiful seam ball by Mac Jones that would have been like a 40, 50-yard catch. So he could have had a much bigger day. Still holding out hope for him, especially when Brock Purdy comes back because they have a great chemistry, but just a really bad game for the 49ers, mainly because they're banged up on the defensive side of the ball. On the flip side, this is a tough one to figure out here. Stroud obviously rips it, 318, 2 touchdowns through the air, despite being without Nico and Christian Kirk. Now, not having Christian Kirk, he's a very replaceable player by these younger dudes that they have. But it's impressive him doing this without Nico Collins. The running back group, we had Woody Marks, 11 for 62 on the ground. Nick Chubb, 17 for 56. Neither of them get into the end zone. Woody Marks does go 4 for 49 through the air thanks to a 50-yard catch. Nick Chubb catches 2 for 13. When we look at the snaps between the backfield, I think these games are just going to keep coming and going. Like, everyone wants to anoint something new or have a new take on this every single week, but this is just what the backfield is. It's a split. Some games are going to be towards Woody Marks. Some games are going to be towards Nick Chubb. I'd rather have Woody Marks because he's a pass catcher and he's proven that over and over again, but there's going to be floor games. There's going to be down games going forward, and that's like when you pick a player, when you have a player on your team, it's almost like you shouldn't look at a guy's rankings on a weekly basis. It's like, think of that on a 4-week time horizon. Like, if I say Woody Marks is a nice low-end RB2, if he performs at an RB1 level the following week, that does not make him an RB1. I still think when I say he's going to be a low-end RB2, I basically mean that that's my outlook for him over, the next 4 weeks, over the next month, over the next 6 weeks. So there's going to be a mix and match of games where he's an RB1, he's an RB3, he's an RB4, he's a high-end RB2. Like, it's going to mix and match and go all over the place. So that's the type of backfield we're looking at here. So when we look at week 8, we had the snap counts in particular, 31 for Woody Marks, 32 for Nick Chubb. As we already said, Nick Chubb got more carries, but Woody Marks ran 17 routes to Nick Chubb's 9. And that's it. Darian Gumbawale a little bit involved here, 12 snaps. British Brooks, 11, but probably a little bit game script involved there for sure. Texans were kind of beating up on the Niners most of the game. And as always, this website here with the snaps, the snap counts, all this kind of stuff, really useful information for you, is on fantasylife.com. That is available, this utilization report with a Fantasy Life Plus subscription. Really, really good deal for you guys. If you use code BDGE when you get a Fantasy Life subscription, you are going to get 20% off, and you'll have it for a full year. So you'll have it for the remainder of the season. You'll have it for draft season. You'll have it for the summer, and then you'll have it for the first 8 weeks of next year as well. So if you go to fantasylife.com, get a Fantasy Life Plus subscription, again, use code BDGE when you check out, 20% off your subscription. Best resource in all of fantasy football right now. The receivers in Houston. No Nico Collins because of the concussion protocol. He had it Monday night, so it was very unlikely for him to clear before this game, but does make him very likely to clear before their Week 9 game against Denver. They're home against Denver. Patrick Surtain suffered a shoulder, possibly pec injury, and good chance that he might not suit up for Denver, which is a big blow to their defense. What do we make of this receiver group here? Without those two, we had all 3 Iowa State receivers kind of get home. Xavier Hutchinson, 5 for 69 and a touchdown on 6 targets. Jalen Noel, 5 for 63 on 6 targets. Jaden Higgins led the team with 8 targets, 4 for 34. He does get into the end zone. When we look at the snap counts, however, Jalen Noel still not fucking playing enough, man. It was 34 routes for Jaden Higgins, 33 routes for Xavier Hutchinson, and only 19 for Jalen Noel because Braxton Berrios was still playing on 16% of the, or ran 16 routes on the 34 dropbacks by CJ Stroud. Now, Braxton Berrios also got banged up in this one, hurt his chest, I believe. I don't know the severity of the injury. If he's out, that's going to be a big uptick in snaps to Jalen Noel, who should already be fucking playing far more than Braxton Berrios here. If Nico Collins comes back, which I do expect him back for Week 9, it makes this whole situation really messy and really difficult to project going forward. I think the other outside wide receiver is likely just going to be split snaps between Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins, which means both of them are going to be really hard to trust. If Christian Kirk is out again with the hamstring strain, he has not practiced yet, so I think there's a 51-49 chance he does not play again in Week 9 against Denver, and Braxton Berrios are both out, then I kind of like Jalen Noel. Then I do think his snap counts rise up to 60, 65%, and then you have an explosive player who's getting separation over the middle of the field. Ultimately, very hard to trust right now, very hard to dictate where we're going with these receivers at this time because we don't know the status of Christian Kirk and Braxton Berrios and Nico Collins and all these guys. But I do think Noel and Higgins, their day 2 picks, round 2 for Higgins, round 3 for Jalen and Noel, need to be owned in 12-team leagues because this is that, that prime second half of the year breakout for rookies. Xavier Hutchinson, I want to give him some credit too. He's played really, really well in the absence of guys over the last couple of years when they've needed him to. I am less likely to roster him in a 12-team league compared to Higgins or Noel because I think the other two just have more upside. But I do think in deeper leagues, maybe 14-teamers, you can roster Xavier Hutchinson. But because Nico Collins is only dealing with a concussion, he should be back soon. Bucs and the Saints. The story of this game was just the Bucs defense. They just put the Saints through hell. Didn't really need much on offense. Baker only throws for a $152, which really pulls down all of the receivers for the Bucs. They had their bye in week 9. So I think there's a good chance you get Bucky Irving back. We'll have to see on Chris Godwin. I think there's a decent chance that they open up the practice window for Jalen McMillan somewhat soon. Wouldn't take my word for it, but yeah, Bucky being back will be big for the offense. On the flip side, the Saints ended up benching Spencer Rattler and putting in Tyler Shuck, their second-round pick this year, 40th overall. I mean, their numbers are damn near identical, so I can't say for sure. I can't say for certain that we're going to see Shuck starting next week. New Orleans plays at LA, the Rams, and then at Carolina before their bye. So maybe they give Rattler 2 more starts. I think Rattler up to this point, like, I know there's so many people on Twitter that are like trying to be really sharp and be like, yeah, Rattler's actually been like super good this year. It's like, no, he hasn't really. He's leading a team that's 1-7. It's not like the supporting cast is like, there are way worse supporting casts in the NFL than what Spencer Rattler has. Shaheed, Olave, Juwan Johnson, Alvin Kamara. Their offensive line, they're not great, but I'd say they're probably somewhere between like 16 and 20 in the offensive line range. So like, there are far worse supporting casts for guys that are not 1-7 right now. So I think people try to outsharp themselves with takes like that about Spencer Rattler. I think 51-49, I would lean that he's been better than he's been worse. But they're clearly just not winning games, and they did use the fucking 40th overall pick on Tyler Shuck. Do I have confidence in Shuck? No, not really. But we'll see going forward. I mean, this team attempted 51 pass attempts in this game, which led to 12 targets for Shaheed, 12 more targets for Olave. Juwan Johnson has a decent game, but just hard to trust anybody in this offense. I mean, Alvin Kamara, first game without Kendre Miller. Devin Neal doesn't get a single carry. Kamara only has 6 carries for 21 yards. Catches 2 passes for 21 yards, or 24 yards. So Kamara has just been wildly disappointing this year. He did get banged up towards the end of the game, but I don't think it's overly serious. We'll keep an eye on practice reports for that one. But yeah, Devin Neal was just not really involved at all either way. So just terrible. Broncos and the Cowboys here. The Broncos kind of just beat the shit out of the Cowboys in this one. The Cowboys still have a terrible, terrible defense. They were without Trayvon Diggs once again, which led to 4 passing touchdowns for Bo Nix. And I think they either said on the, I don't remember if it was on the game call or if it was afterwards or if I saw it on Twitter or something, but someone had spoken to the Dallas coaching staff and they basically said throughout the week that their number one priority was bracketing Courtland Sutton and taking him out of the game. And you saw that really come to fruition where he did almost nothing through 3 quarters of the game. And in the 4th quarter, he finally got home. He also dropped like a 25-yard touchdown pass that hit him blatantly right in the chest. So he ended up like having a decent day given what the defense tried to do. And that ended up allowing Troy Franklin to have a big game. 6 for 89, 2 touchdowns. Ironically, almost an identical box score to what he did back in week 2 when everybody in fantasy went nuts, when he went 8 for 89 against, who'd they do it against? Against Indy's secondary. And then everyone went crazy, and then Troy Franklin had like 5 terrible, unusable games in a row. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great matchup against the terrible Dallas Cowboys secondary. Courtland Sutton was completely focused in on, so I'm not... Troy Franklin, I think he should be owned, and I think that was the case after week 2, but like he's nothing more than a wide receiver 4 flex during bye weeks. That you could put him in for good matchups. He could always pop, but he could also always just go 1 for 15. This game in particular does not change the way I look at Troy Franklin whatsoever. The backfield, J.K. Dobbins continues to be a fucking beast, 15 for 111. on the ground, 10 yards through the air. He's just not scoring a lot of touchdowns right now. RJ Harvey was the one who basically had a career day here. 7 for 46 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Also caught a 5-yard pass. So Harvey, this one's going to be one where, like, again, if you just look at the box score, the fantasy points, you're going to be like, yay, RJ Harvey. He had a beautiful run on the 40-yard touchdown. That was awesome. It was a sweep to the left and, a lot of huge holes. The blocking was great, but that's the kind of speed. You get that home run hitting ability with RJ Harvey. The other 2 touchdowns, I think 95% of running backs in the NFL score those. They just happen to be a great part of the field that RJ Harvey happened to get the carry or the target within the 5-yard line. So that one I'm not like overemphasizing about. And RJ Harvey, to me, still, it's the Cowboys defense does not make me a ton more bullish on him for the remainder of the season whatsoever, because he's had good games and then it becomes like a nothing burger again. When we look at the percentage of snaps in this one, even with them beating up the Dallas Cowboys and giving, Harvey, Bidet carries and touches into the second half, like Dobbins 54, Harvey 28%. Like, you can't start a guy who's getting 28% of the snaps at the end of the day. Dallas, yeah, not much to take away here. Javonte gets in twice. No one really gets in through the passing game, but the Jake Ferguson donut game was honestly, it was coming with CD returning. That was like the biggest, that was like the biggest kind of takeaway here is, like, when CD's there, we are going to have some bad games from Jake Ferguson. He'll have some good games, but even last week when he scored a couple touchdowns, he only had 30-ish yards. But Pickens looked great. CD looked great. Like I said, Patrick Surtain did get hurt in this game. So that opened up the passing offense a bit for Dallas to move it, but something to look forward to if you have guys going against Denver in the next few weeks. Colts beat the shit out of the Titans. And speaking of the Colts, we officially booked our flights to Berlin. We are going, myself, JMO, and Sexy are going to Germany for the Falcons versus Colts game in week 10. So if we've got any German homies out there, please slide in my DMs. It's just at Nick Ercolano on Instagram or Twitter. We've got our flights. We're looking at Airbnbs in different locations that you guys have sent me information on. But we're trying to do a fan meetup either Saturday or Sunday before the game. If we have enough people around, we'll probably just like pick a bar and be like, hey, we're going to go here regardless of if anyone meets us there. It would be sick to get like 10 of our German fans together if we have that many German. I got to imagine between like all of our platforms, between the YouTube channels, TikTok and Twitter and everything, we've got almost like 1 million people that follow us. Like there has to be people in Germany that fucking watch BDGE, right? We can get people for the German game, for the Berlin game. It's actually going to be my first time in Europe ever. I've never been to Europe before. So yeah, again, DM me if you're going to that game, if you're going to be in Berlin, you're going to be in Germany. Even if you're not going to the game, if you're just there and want to hang, let a brother know. What can we take away from the Titans side? Literally nothing. Shamir Decay, another good game, 7 for 93, but like, I don't trust anybody in this Titans passing offense. Calvin Ridley's been out for the last 2 weeks, probably sits out in week 9 because they have their bye in week 10. But like any given week, any of these guys can have floor games. Decay is running as many routes as Ali Maynor, running as many routes as Van Jefferson. So it's like, sure, he's produced well the last 2 weeks, but there's just no way he's getting into my lineup. And as soon as Ridley's back, I got to imagine Ridley's 100% snap guy once again. So I will say the one takeaway maybe is Tajay Spears playing a shitload of snaps. We never get real game script for Tennessee. Like, they get the shit beat out of them. So it always feels like they're playing from behind and playing in garbage time. But it did feel like a little bit of the changing of the guard here. Tajay Spears out-snapped Tony Pollard 51% to 48%, 34 snaps to 32. Pollard 11 carries to 9 carries for Tajay Spears, but Spears had 18 routes to Pollard's 17, got targeted a little bit more, but as you could see, long down in distance, and then the 2 and 4 minute drill snaps went to Tajay Spears. He also got the only carry inside the 5-yard line. So, again, it's tough to trust Tajay Spears, but he did have a good fantasy day in this one. It's more like Tony Pollard is starting to become unstartable at this point. On the flip side, Daniel Jones continues to play out of his mind. Jonathan Taylor is just like so clearly in the MVP race. It's really going to come down to what the quarterbacks do. Like, if If the Chiefs end up going 13-4, 14-3, if the Bills end up going, which is almost impossible, they'd have to win out, but it's really going to come down to whether or not like Mahomes, Josh Allen, like the really high profile quarterbacks, Drake May, if any of these guys lead their teams to like 14-3, 13-4 records, they're probably going to get the nod at quarterback for MVP over a running back who they'll just give the Offensive Player of the Year award to. But Jonathan Taylor is damn close. There's so many records that this man is smashing. I played against Jack and your idiot league mates, and I was projected to get killed because I had so many players on bye. The 1 o'clock games happened. He had Bijan and C-Mac, and both of them they combined for like 15 PPR points, and I was like, holy shit, I might have a chance. And then JT just dropped a 40 fucking burger on my face hole. And I was like, yeah, that was fun while it lasted. Michael Pittman continues to be one of the best value picks in all of fantasy football, 8 for 95 and a touchdown. Him and Warren, you keep rolling out every single week. The rest of them are just like kind of shaky flex plays. And then we had Sunday Night Football. The Packers, 35-25. Jordan Love has one of his best throwing days of his career, 360 and 3 touchdowns, mostly in part to Tucker Kraft, who is like very quickly becoming a top 3, if not like arguably the number 1 tight end in fantasy football right now, or in football right now. He feels a little bit like Trey McBride, just in a better situation. Like if Trey McBride was on the Packers and they ran their offense through him like they do with Kraft, he'd probably be putting up very, very similar numbers, but he ain't. So we're not in that alternate fucking universe. Tucker Kraft just continues to go nuts here. 9 targets, 7 catches, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was one of the players on our must-draft list this summer because of how fucking well he moves with the ball in his hands. You just don't see tight ends do the shit that he does. He is so good, man. Every week he's making plays where he's just stiff-arming dudes into their core, into the earth. It's crazy. The backfield, clearly Jacobs is a little bit hindered from the calf still. 13 for 33, does get home with a touchdown, does catch 3 passes, but Emmanuel Wilson, 11 carries, 61 yards, also catches 3 passes. But the story of the Packers fantasy day is the wide receiver position. Christian Watson comes back. It is his first time playing since he tore his ACL in week 18 of last season. He ends up running around 70-ish% of the routes here, catches all 4 targets for 85 yards. Romeo Doubs, 3 catches, 44 yards, could have had a bigger day with a drop. Matthew Golden kind of banished into nothingness here. So it's clear to me that Watson is retaining his role. Like they drafted Matthew Golden to kind of be the heir apparent to Christian Watson and be the guy that stretches the field while Watson is out. And now that's not the case anymore. The most telling numbers here, right? Like Watson comes back and he's immediately running 65% of the routes. As he gets healthier over the next month, over the next 6 weeks, that number is going to skyrocket, obviously. He saw an ADOT of 18 yards downfield, 37% of the air yards. Romeo Doubs, 18.2 with 56% of the air yards. I actually think Romeo Doubs is a really good buy low candidate if you can get him right now. But Matthew Golden, 76% of the routes. He's open often because he's a good route runner, but his ADOT is 1.3 yards. He had 2% of the team's air yards. It's not great. It's not great for Goldie. And on top of that, Jaden Reed is going to return this year. Maybe it's week 10, maybe it's week 11, but it will be within the next month or so. And Jaden Reed's going to have a fucking role here. They're all going to have a role, but I wouldn't be surprised if Christian Watson ends up being the number 2 in terms of snaps behind Romeo Doubs. It's going to be Doubs is going to continue to run the most routes here. Jordan Love loves him, trusts him. I think Doubs has earned that, to be honest with you. And then I think it's going to be a shit show behind him in terms of targets and routes and stuff outside of Tucker Kraft, who is an every week starter. So not great. On the flip side, Rodgers, 219, 2 touchdowns through the air. Roman Wilson catches, I believe it's his first touchdown. Does have like a decent day box score wise, but most of it came on like a 45-yard broken play. DK Metcalf gets home. Jaylen Warren continues to dominate the backfield there. 13 carries to Kenneth Gainwell's 5, who also lost a fumble here. Yeah, overall, again, like Pittsburgh, I think is going to come back down to earth because they now play a schedule that is legitimate. They get Indy next week. They're at LA Chargers the week after that. So we will see what this team is made of over the next month. But I expect it to be a decent amount of performances like this. Yeah, I believe that's it. I believe that is it for the Week 8 recap. Tomorrow's video, we will jump into the waiver wire, of course. It'll be a lot more in-depth. My waiver wire rankings, as always, will be live on bdge.co for the Big Dog members, all right? It's where you can sign up. It is our monthly membership. You get access to the waiver wire rankings. You get access to our sit-start rankings every week, and you get access to our private Q&A every Sunday morning where I help you set your lineups. And of course, again, if you want access to these beautiful utilization charts, you can find them on fantasylife.com. Sign up for a Fantasy Life Plus subscription with code BDGE. You will get 20% off for the next calendar year. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for hanging out today. If you are one of my German friends, DM me. All right. Guten Tag. Yeah.